Hey, you all, welcome back. I have a quick question. Did you all know that there is a crisis that there are some international organizations are bringing to light? I was watching earlier today. I was watching a Forbes news broadcast that was talking about possible. They're sounding the alarm on possible food scarcity, possibly upcoming for the rest of, or sometimes within this year of 2026. And they were with the geopolitical issues with the Iran war, or conflict in Iran, however you want to call it, or title it. They are sounding the alarm in regards to the Strait of Hormuz has brought to light there being a shortage on fertilizers. Now, this is not something that's new. I can recall hearing news about there being a fertilizer shortage. I believe it was like last year sometime, and I think it had to do with because a lot of fertilizers, and when I say fertilizers, I'm speaking synthetic fertilizers. That means they're made in a lab. I believe a lot of them, or some of them, have petroleum based ingredients. And I think that with the issue in, or if they don't have petroleum based ingredients, the production of them, in other words, petroleum in some ways affect the supply and demand of the amount of supply of fertilizers. And so back a few years ago, there was a shortage, and they were saying that there's something that's not being produced, or was the production was slow, that was causing a shortage in fertilizers. But the Strait of Hormuz being blocked or closed or limited, however you want to say it, that is now exacerbating the issue, where there are serious shortages in regards to the supply of fertilizer. Now, regular average person would say, how does this affect me? It does affect you if you live in the United States. It does affect you if you live in other industrialized countries in the world, because a lot of our foods are produced on a commercial scale by large companies. And if the fertilizer that these companies use, they use those so that they can produce food faster. Fertilizers are not 100, especially not synthetic fertilizers, are not a necessity. Back, say if you go back 50 or so years, 60 or so years, fertilizers weren't as widely, especially not synthetic fertilizers, were not as widely used in the production of food here in the United States. Now, I'm not saying that fertilizer wasn't used, but we use natural fertilizers. What are natural fertilizers? That would have been like farm animal, like feces, cow manure. That is a major fertilizer that was used, and a lot of people still do use it. Worm castings, that is a natural fertilizer that people use. Also, people composting, that is a natural fertilizer. What is composting? Composting is using taking organic ingredients that are biodegradable and that can break down and naturally produce a lot of the minerals and a lot of the fertilizers or natural fertilizers that our soil needs. Because another issue that is being that I know of, that maybe a lot of other people in the mainstream may not know of, your average person, they're also talking about they call it a soil degradation issue. This is not a new issue. This is something that has been talked about for a while. If you're a gardener, you know this. Even an amateur gardener, you know that a lot of people were asking and promoting for individuals to have their own home gardens, because that helps to when you grow things on a local level, and then a lot of people also who have gardens, they don't use so many commercial fertilizers, so that helps to ease, and that's just a cleaner way. And it may not be like organic, like certified organic, but it's a version of organic that helps the environment. So let me break all this down. Basically, what I'm saying is a gentleman named John Dent with the International Chamber of Commerce is sounding the alarm, saying that there is a problem with getting fertilizers. And he's saying that and because of that, he's saying that there may be a food scarcity issue. What I'm saying is, that may be true, but what I'm saying is synthetic fertilizer is not what we in America, in my opinion, in the US, need to focus and be dependent on. With all of these geopolitical issues that are going on, it's just highlighting and bringing to the forefront problems that have been long standing. Problem that I want to talk about right now is dependence on synthetic fertilizers. Synthetic fertilizers have side effects. It can poison the water underground, the water that we drink underground. It can poison that. In addition, it brings an imbalance of minerals because, as we know, Mother Nature is there's a synergistic balance in Mother Nature. So when you rely on natural fertilizers, you get that. But with these synthetic fertilizers, they don't. A lot of them don't come in. It's artificial, basically, and artificial could never compare or substitute natural. I'm gonna say it that way. So what they're saying is the USDA is saying 30 to 40% of the U.S. food produced is wasted. So just based on that, and that's based on a 2010 study. That was over 15 or 16 years ago, because we're in 2026 right now. And so that number is probably higher. And it's only common sense. If we're wasting between 30 to 40% of the food that's produced here in the United States, why is there a need to, what I would ask is, why is there a need to produce so much of it? Why not manage the crop production in a better way? Why do we have to grow so fast? Why can't we allow the natural process to take place, opposed to putting synthetic fertilizers in the soil to get a higher yield and to accelerate the food production even beyond what's natural and even beyond what's good for us? Because the USDA also did another study I found, where they found that, and we know this because this isn't the first time I've heard this either, that our food is less nutritious today than it was back, say, 20, 30 years ago. So if you eat a pepper today, a strawberry, a lot of people will say, and a watermelon, things like that, a lot of people say, oh, it doesn't even taste like it used to taste. A lot of that has to do with the minerals kind of being reduced in the food that we're getting today, because it's being produced so much faster. So I want to talk about some things we can do on a local level and on an individual level to help with this. People always say it's not, or some people say the little things really don't matter, but they actually do. In any situation you look at, if you get a mass of people that make little adjustments, that do small things, it can add up to make a big difference. So tips to combat soil depletion and just to be better to Mother Earth. One thing I want to say is to stop buying synthetic fertilizers, and that's a choice that I would make. Because these synthetic fertilizers, what they do is they kill the soil biology in the soil. So if you look in the soil, You have ants, you have worms, and all of that. That's what they are speaking of when they say soil biology. And then all of the microbiology that you can't even see, that all plays a part in helping to increase the mineral content and to balance our soils basically so that we make it rich. The next thing that I want to, and some suggestions that I want to give is to start your own garden. If you have, especially those moms, you have children, little ones, they love being able to play in the soil. They love being able to be a part of producing gardening and producing, food. It gives invaluable lessons. It teaches them about working hard. It teaches them about being patient. It teaches them about planting a seed, waiting for and nurturing the seed so that you get a harvest. There are so many like life lessons that are taught in just that. So, if you live in a smaller space where you don't have a large yard, container gardening is a huge thing. You can watch YouTube and see a lot of people that are showing you how to garden in containers where people are growing tomatoes, potatoes, squash, greens, just everything. You can grow almost anything in a in a container. And so, if you don't have a lot of space, look at having a container garden because that helps. And then, of course, if you live in a home where you have a nice yard, designate a spot in that yard to have a garden. Even a small garden where you are growing greens, say, or lettuce or kale or tomatoes, peppers, squash, broccoli, things like that. That helps to not only are you eating a better quality food because you know where it comes from, you know what ingredients that have or haven't been put on your food, and a lot of people who have gardens most likely are not treating their garden with a lot of pesticides and things like that. Hopefully, you're not, because there's an alternative to, if you're having an issue with pests in your garden, there's an alternative to synthetic pest control. You can do natural, organic pest control. But you know what's being put on your food, and so you hopefully it's something better than what you would buy in the store, and you know what you're putting in your body. So having a garden is good for everybody. Next, if you have a garden, it is best, they are saying, that you avoid tilling the garden. Tilling, they say, breaks down the organism that's in the soil, which can kind of deplete the soil of the nutrients. So what you want to do is, instead of fully tilling the garden soil, you want to turn it over. That's what they're suggesting if you are prepping for a garden. So don't be so aggressive with just ripping up everything, but just kind of be a little more gentle with Mother Earth in preparing your garden or your garden beds. And then last but not least, buy local. This is something that I know I grew up where we did that. When I was growing up in Florida, we used to go to the farmers market like every weekend, and that was like a big thing. And that helps to not only support the local economy, but that also helps with buying local. And then also buying local is an umbrella, but it also helps to combat buying food that's, if you're buying local, you are also buying food that's in season, and that is a very big issue because I know for myself, having grown up and lived in Florida and lived in Florida as an adult, I don't eat produce, oranges and things like that, grapefruit. I don't eat citrus from anywhere else. I also try not to, or limit the amount of strawberries that I eat from anywhere else. I only really want Florida strawberries. And Florida strawberries, you can get those like starting around January. I think they fully ripen and they become, you start seeing them a lot more on shelves in February, March, like in the spring. So that's when I get my strawberries and I eat strawberries. I try not to eat California strawberries. And then you say, well, why? What difference does it make? If you think about it, you mean to tell me you got strawberries that had to be transported from, I live in the South of United States, strawberries that had to be transported from California, the West Coast, all the way to Florida. Like, that is, when you think about it, that is ridiculous. We wouldn't do that in any other situation. So it's like, no, I don't I'm gonna eat local. I'm gonna eat food when they're in season. I'm gonna try not to eat them when they're out of season. I'm just gonna rotate, eating like fruit that's in season. If I can't get strawberries, say in the fall, well, maybe I don't need strawberries in the fall. Maybe I'll switch to a more natural way of eating by eating according to the season. So hopefully we can get back to that, which will help with so much other things and solve so many other problems. So that's just a little scientific fact for us this weekend, and I wanted to bring it to you guys to kind of make you all aware of that, and to encourage all of us to start gardens and to start thinking on a bigger scale on how we can secure our food necessity, just in case things go down, just in case there's something happen as far as from a national level. If you have a little small garden where you're growing greens and tomatoes and peppers and things like that, you're less likely to panic if grocery stores close again. Now, I'm not saying that that can totally supply all your needs as far as food, but that you won't starve. I mean, if you had to just eat what you grew in your garden and maybe get, small supplements of other things, it would help. So I just kind of wanted to bring that to light. All right, guys, you guys enjoy. I'm sending you all an abundance of love and light. You guys enjoy the remainder of your weekend. All right, guys, take care. Namaste.